Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Your Best Lifestyles Health and Wellness Podcast. I am your host, Terrence Hutchinson, right here at the Old Robinson Public Relations and Media Group Studios in Atlanta, Georgia. What's up, everybody? Happy Hump Day. Happy Wednesday. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys are having a good day thus far. I know for many of you, you guys are happy because it's Wednesday. You got a couple more days to go before the weekend. But hey, man, it's a lot going on in the world, and I just wanted to tap in and make sure that you guys are okay psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, financially, environmentally, all those great wellness components. Now, don't be overwhelmed by everything you're seeing in the news. Okay, I was out with a doctor client of mine this morning, and she was just totally stressed out. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. She hadn't even made it to her office yet, and she's totally stressed out about the changes that's going on in the workplace, changes that's going on in the world, the economy, the current administration, all that. Look, let me tell you something. Tune some of it out. You keep, pay attention, see what's going on, listen to what's going on, but learn how to tune it out because if you're constantly being bombarded and paying attention to everything that's going on that's negative, guess what? You're going to start your day off negative, right? So when you get to your workplace, you're going to have an increase of anxiety. Maybe you're dealing with depression. Maybe you're dealing with some type of negative behavior that can trickle down to your employees, to co-workers, even to your patients if you're seeing anybody. Whether you are a police officer, a firefighter, whatever it is, man, you're going to have to make sure that you are intact with your mental and your emotional health. Okay, this is a big, big, big deal, especially if people are depending on you. If you're seeing patients, you're treating the public, or you're out in front of the public. Make sure that you are aware of what's going on with your overall health and well-being, so you can be as of service to others that come in contact with you. You don't want to be super spicy and super agitated when people come in and talk to you and all those things like that. Or when if you're an entrepreneur, you don't want to be super aggressive because you're feeling a certain type of way. So listen, we wanted to make sure that you guys are practicing some self-care techniques, learning how to breathe from the diaphragm and out through the nostrils. Maybe you're counting from 0 to 1, from 100 to 0, count backwards. Get some sun. If you're able to get some sun, get about 20, 25 minutes of sun. Go work out, go meditate, go pray, go stretch, drink some water, whatever you need to do that's holistic. Okay. We don't want you to go and start drinking and smoking and self medicating just to feel better because it's only a temporary fix, right? So, for so many of you guys are dealing with possible layoffs. That could be triggered from what's going on right now. So, you're worrying about income, you're worrying about your future, you're worrying about how you're going to pay for certain things. And I know because I work with many of you guys, so I know the triggers, I know what's going on, what you're dealing with. But at the end of the day, you have to make sure that you are in control of what you can control of, excuse me. Control what you're thinking, what you're feeling. Use your emotional intelligence and also everything that you're thinking, that you are thinking is pretty much not factual. Okay, so we learn how to relax. I know that stress is going to come up, it's going to really trigger a lot of unnecessary feelings in you. So learn how to relax. As a health and wellness coach, we know stress is inevitable. We know that. But when it comes up, utilize that stress to create something, maybe journal, go paint, whatever you need to do to utilize the stress, that it can be a blessing in that. So I wanted to say that right quick because so many people, even my doctor clients, they see me, they have a high influx of individuals coming into the emergency rooms or to the doctor's office dealing with increased cortisol levels, increased stress, depression, anxiety. They're dealing with PTSD, all of those mental health issues. So they're having a increased levels of those cortisol hormones. So now you got to go see your doctor. Now you got to get possible more medication. Uh, hey, it just is going to cost you more money in premiums and copay, all that. So we want to make sure that you holistically are paying attention to your health, paying attention of what you're thinking, pay attention of what you're feeling, and pay attention to your overall well-being. And also be aware of how you are speaking to yourself when you see yourself in the mirror. Do not down yourself. Do not kick yourself. Do not say negative words. Be very gentle, be compassionate, and remind yourself how far you've come. You're confident, you're energetic, you're vibrant, all those good different things, right? So, and this is how it's going to help you to get through the day, get through the ordeal. Okay, so with that being said, you already know what to do. All right, so we want to say thank you to everybody who bought the tickets to the 8th BBR Indie Films and Networking event. That's on the 26th of February. We have a great lineup right now with some amazing filmmakers and some celebrity guest panelists that's going to be there. The next event after this, we got snowed out 2 weeks ago, so we had to postpone it until the 26th. So, and the next event after that is going to be on the 12th. So be looking out for the information so you can go purchase your tickets. It's a phenomenal event. We're highlighting independent filmmakers, storytellers. If you are in the music industry, television, films, you're doing jingles, you're doing commercials, whatever you do, you want to make sure that you tap in with us and you get more information about what we're doing at www.bbrindiefilms.com. Okay, tap in with us. There's a lot of seasoned individuals who are sharing some great information. They got a lot of skin in the game for 20 years, and they work with the top brands like Netflix, Hulu, uh, Amazon, Tyler Perry, all of that. So you want to make sure that you tap in. Okay, so it's a lot more I can talk about, but I'm going to bring my guests in. We're happy and honored to have Rabbi David Pinkwasser. Uh, David Pinkwasser is a retired Reform Rabbi. He was raised conservative but educated Orthodox and served Reformed Jewish congregation for over 25 years. Born and raised in BK, Brooklyn, y'all, Crown Heights, New York. He and his wife, Ann, and two sons, Josh and Aaron, have lived in Arizona for many decades now. He has been an active part of the Jewish community as well as known all segments of the population. His career spanned over 50 years, 5 decades, y'all. Okay, working in both the public school system, Arizona prisons, state hospital, and airlines. With the very backgrounds, he has accumulated many interesting stories that people enjoy hearing as it has advice for those thinking about changing careers midlife. Welcome to the show, Rabbi David Pinkwasser. How you doing today?
I am doing very well. Thank you. What a great introduction.
Yeah, man, it's all on you. It's all on you. So we happy to have you. Thank you so much for considering us to really share your story with our audience. We really appreciate the opportunity to get to know you, connect with you, and learn from you. So how's the weather in Arizona?
Actually, it is getting very warm. Should be in the 80s today,
Oh,
which is
great.
probably 10 or 12 degrees above what it should be. So, no, people are walking around in shorts and short sleeve shirts, and talking about getting sun, here we get more sun than we can
Yeah,
use, and
yeah.
but it's great, keeps you healthy.
Oh yeah, yeah. This the sun is a natural form of vitamin D, so you
D,
know,
yeah, great stuff.
good stuff. But too much of it can be deadly.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So make sure you wear sunscreen and stay hydrated. You
oh
know,
yes.
all those good things like that. Okay, so why change careers at 49?
That is a good question. Most people would probably just want to stick it out in their job, not be very happy at what they're doing, but they would say, I'm midlife, what can I do? So
Right.
at this point, I was working long hours. We're talking 14 to 16 hours a day.
Ooh,
And sometimes I would go for like 6 weeks without getting a day off. And it really was getting to me. So I worked for a congregation that I absolutely adored and asked for some assistance. I said, I need a second rabbi to come here and help. And they said, we understand, but the Union of American Hebrew Congregations says we're just too low to require such services. If you have 500 families, you can get a second rabbi. We were at 475. So let me tell you the difference between 475 and 500. It's the
right,
same thing.
right,
And what the people in the upper echelons didn't understand, not the congregation, but the people directing them, was that if you were a rabbi in Scottsdale and you did a hospital visit, you went to Scottsdale North, Scottsdale South, you were there in 10 minutes, you did your visit, you went back to the office. My congregation was spread out. Some of the hospital visits took me 45 minutes just to get to the hospital. And then there'd be somebody else at another hospital. And of course, it was always on the other side of town. So I could be spending 3 or 4 hours doing what they were able to do in 1 hour. So we got to the point where I said, okay, this is not going to work anymore. I think I need to retire while I still have my mental health. So I left there in very good conditions. Everybody was very sorry to see me go, but they understood. So when the congregation was small, I taught school in the public school system, taught 9 years in the Scottsdale district, and then when the congregation became medium sized, I said, okay, I really can't do two full-time jobs. I need to get something else. So I picked up the prison chaplaincy, and the prison chaplaincy was 5 days a month. And because of that, I was able to manage. Well, now when the congregation finally hit 475, I said, okay, this is too much. Thank you. I'm going to look for other directions. So most people who are congregational clergy become either a teacher or a chaplain. I said, okay, been there, done that. My wife said, you have always wanted to be a flight attendant. I said, yeah, but I graduated from school in 1967. Being a male flight attendant was not a job opportunity. And you had to be a woman, you had to be tall and gorgeous. I didn't have any of the physical requirements. She said, apply for the job. They don't want you, they won't hire you. Got hired like that.
oh
And
wow,
found out later that they were really looking for more older people who had life experience, work experience, family experience. So they asked, do you think you can control the passengers on board if they get a little rowdy? I said, I worked in a prison. Yes, I can do that. That is not a problem. And the truth of the matter is, the 22 years that I was there, I never had any kind of incident that got that bad that I was worried about any physical violence. I was always able to quell things while people were upset, and I would go over, and this is where the rabbi part came out.
Correct.
You look upset today, something wrong. They said, well, yeah, I'm heading out to Sacramento to take my mother off life support. And, it's upsetting. I said, let me finish up with these drinks. I had another life before I came here. Let me share it with you. And I sat down and talked with her about taking her mother off of life support. And wow, it was just wonderful. She felt so good when she left. They said, you're making the right decision, and gave her all of the tools that she needed to do that. I think the biggest problem with people is that they don't sit there and listen, and you really need to listen to people and see what is going on there. And then once you do, it really becomes a very pleasant work environment.
Yeah. One thing I know, you have to be an active listener and you have to show empathy and compassion to what people are saying. Most people, they need somebody to listen to them and interact with their feelings and their emotions about things, because you never know how you can be helping that person off a ledge, and it's very important to, like they say, grandma used to always say, God give you one mouth and two ears, so you listen closely and then you talk less and talk when you need to talk. Some
Oh,
people, they just want to talk.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And I learned this very well working with women rather than men, because women would like to vent. And when they told me what their problem was, I was now giving them back a solution. And the other women on the cruise said, shh, no, she doesn't want an answer. And I'm going, why? She just needs to vent. I said,
Yeah.
okay. As a guy, I don't quite understand that, because if I ask her a question, I expect an answer. She said, no, she just wants to do this. She'll feel good. And she thanked me. They all thanked me. And I learned some good life lessons doing that. And even speaking to men, it is very important to be a good listener.
Yeah, very, very important. Now, you switched from being a rabbi to working in the school district to airlines. Which one of those jobs that you feel like you like the most?
Oh, this is a loaded question. Uh,
It's a
I
combination of all of them, I'm sure.
Well, I loved all of them for what they were. Of course, the first thing, being a rabbi, is a calling, and it's something that you do 24 hours a day. Being a flight attendant, I will say when I was on reserve, I was called in the middle of the night. That was not as appreciated as much as the other. But the flight attendant job was fun, and I really enjoyed doing it, enjoyed being with the people. Being a rabbi, being able to help someone and being to do things that we don't do in our American culture, like the whole subject of death. We never talk about this. And then when somebody is sick or ready to pass away, they are lost and they need somebody there to direct them. And being on a plane, there are a lot of people that come in there that are very nervous about flying. And I try to tell them, I said, number one, there has never been a drive-by shooting on an airplane, so you don't need to worry. On the highways in Arizona, not so much. If you make a wrong hand gesture at somebody,
Yeah,
many times you hear on the news in the evening somebody has gotten shot. So you have to realize, these two careers are not totally different. People really don't know what rabbis do, and they don't know what flight attendants do. And I believe that when they see somebody who is a clergy, they see them up on the pulpit. They're in a beautiful surrounding with flowers and beautiful lighting and stained glass windows. And I remember my father saying, look at this job that you have. You get up once a week, you make a speech, and they pay you a bundle. This is not exactly what went on, besides the services and the weddings and the funerals, belonging to different boards and going to meetings and doing all kinds of teaching and counseling and ceremonies. And I will say many times the counseling, you were speaking about mental health, people feel very comfortable talking to their clergy. They don't necessarily feel that comfortable going for mental health help. things have gotten better, but we still haven't gotten to where we need to be. So I would speak to people about personal problems, sexual problems, family problems, all kinds of things. And if they needed an outside placement, I knew where to send them. Being a flight attendant, people say, oh, you serve drinks and a meal and, you're just a sky waiter. And the word in Spanish for flight attendant, they don't use it anymore, was aeromozo, which meant air waiter. I was not an air waiter. I was one that had to know all the FAA regulations. I had to know how to put out a fire, how to evacuate the plane in 90 seconds so people didn't die, how to defuse a passenger who was irate. And, these are the things that we do. So it's interesting that people don't know that. And in addition to that, I was part of the CISM team. This was the critical response team. And you were speaking about mental health issues. If there's something happening on the plane, a decompression, a passenger dies, serious medical, well, you need somebody there to talk to. So I was trained to do this with my clergy background. I went for training for both basic and advanced. So if somebody was a crew member that had been through a decompression, like one said, I bounced off the walls, I broke my leg in 4 places, but that's not my problem. I smell burnt fuel and I smell rubber burning. Well, she was at home. She wasn't. This was all up in her head. And I was able to talk her through this. And the fact that I did the same job as her really was very, very helpful because I had immediate response from her because she knew exactly when she was talking about bouncing off the walls. I said, been there, done that. I also had the privilege of being a cohort. So with my teaching background, I worked with some of the newbies that came on board. In the first 2 days, I said, you learned all of the book stuff. I'm going to show you the practical stuff now.
Right.
And being a Spanish teacher, I also was a Lodo. So when I went to Spanish-speaking countries, I did all the announcements in English and in Spanish. And the most important thing was not, have you gotten your drink yet? But could I evacuate the plane in Spanish and make sure everybody was safe? So it was really kind of cool.
Yeah, which is very important as well, to have a bilingual
Oh, oh
attention.
yeah.
Yeah, that can help. Now, everybody know what's going on right now with the airlines and the FAA and all that stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
As a flight attendant or a formal, just to say, I'm not getting on the plane anytime soon until they fix it. What would you say to somebody like me who need to go to Arizona but is afraid to get on the plane? I have anxiety now because I think that they can't get it together. What would you say?
Well, all I can say is flying on an airplane is still much, much, much safer than driving in a car. And especially in certain neighborhoods around here, I found the wealthier neighborhoods you go into, the more entitled the people feel and drive 100 miles an hour on the freeway and you're not safe. When something happens with the airlines, when you think about what happened in last week, there were 3 incidents. There were so many thousands of flights that went out. Percentage wise, it is such a small thing. So safety wise, and I'll give you an example. We were backing out of the gate and we were probably 15 seconds into the flight. The plane now turns around and goes back into the gate. I said, what's wrong? They said, well, there was a backup light on the dashboard here that was out, and I want to make sure it gets fixed. Now, I could do it at the next stop, but I might forget about that. And then if we change crews and somebody else comes here and they don't see the light, they won't realize they're going, let's take the time, we'll change it. So they are very, very studious about this. They're just, safety is number one, as opposed to me who had an engine light on and said, when I go to the mechanic tomorrow, I'll have him look at it rather than going and saying, I want to have it fixed. So compared to cars, you should not be afraid to fly. There are so many safety things that they do that you shouldn't be worried.
Awesome. That's a great way because I know people now who fly a lot, but now they freaked out and they just
It's
don't.
because they don't know. And people would say to me, "Oh, you're a rabbi. You must pray every time the plane takes off." I said, "If you have to do that, this is not the job for you."
Right.
I was in complete confidence. So yeah, not to be worried.
Now, when you was doing more of the rabbi duties, and you had close to 500 families, how much stress did that put on you? Because I know that sound like it's a lot.
It was a lot, but I have always lived a crazy life like that. You talk about somebody who is a multitasker. When I was a youngster, I had jobs from the time I was 11 years old. I delivered flowers in New York City at 11, all over the city. I'd go from Brooklyn to the Bronx and stuff. And I worked stock in a chocolate shop, which was really quite nice. I gained 60 pounds at that job, and then continued on in sales, and then worked for a liquor distributing company working in the office. And then I was self employed and started my own business. This is all before the age of 18 and learned about computers and stuff. So I've always been kind of a crazy guy doing several jobs. And I've taken my hyperactivity and just channeled it into things that I could do. So there were long hours and stuff, but I always, operated that way. That's why I got through high school in 3.5 years, college in 3.5 years, and rabbinical school in 3.5 years. So,
Awesome.
it's always on the run. So, I was able to handle it.
Okay. So what do you do now? Are you totally retired, or what are you doing now?
Well, I am totally retired. What happened was we were traveling. We've been doing a lot of traveling. We were in Austria, and that's when COVID started. And the borders were closed to get into the Czech Republic, so they sent all the Americans home. So we went home, and I worked another couple of jobs, another couple of flights after that. And I wore a mask and kind of separated myself from the people. It wasn't very pleasant, but I was able to do it. And my wife was not happy about me being around people with the virus going on.
Mhm.
So then the company said, if you don't work, we will pay you half salary. I said, okay. So I did that for about 4 months. And then they said, okay, if you retire now, we will give you a year's worth of salary, a year's worth of free health insurance, and lifetime flight benefits. So I was 71 at the time. I said, okay, how many more years am I going to do this? And I do have my own personal thing that old geezers who are working as flight attendants who look like old geezers should quit and go home. You did a nice job, go home. And so I did. And do I miss the job? A lot. But it was the right decision at the right time. So now here I am. We're doing a lot of traveling. I'm going through a little medical stuff right now. So where the traveling is put on the back burner. But we've been to 65 countries. And since I can travel around relatively inexpensive. We want to do this as long as we can and have good health.
Yeah, no doubt. It's all about now when it comes down to traveling, it's all about being in good health, because
Yes.
traveling is much more fun when you're feeling great and you're feeling a
Yeah.
lot of vitality. But if you're ill and you're not feeling well, traveling is it's no fun.
No. And that's why during COVID, people have been hounding me for years that I need to write a book. They said, you have so many interesting stories and adventures. You should do that. And, I was busy doing other things. And I said, nah, that's not a top priority. And I'm not a professional writer. I am definitely a professional talker, but not a writer. But I wrote, sermons and lectures and articles and stuff like that. So finally, during COVID, I had more time than I needed. So I sat down and started writing some of the stories. And people just found the stories either hilarious or heart wrenching. And I would say most of the time they were hilarious because people don't know what we do behind the scenes. And I would do probably about 75 plus weddings a year, 75 plus funerals, circumcisions, bar mitzvahs, and stuff. So the people I came into contact in some of the situations are really
Funny.
something.
But that sounds like it's very rewarding and challenging at the same time. 75 funerals, 75 weddings, mitzvahs, circumcisions. But I know the funerals are not that. Nobody's really celebrating it at that, depending on what your culture is. But
Right.
it sounds like it's very, rewarding. Um, what was when you performing a lot of these things? What was the emotional connection that you experience, especially when you're doing the bar mitzvahs and the celebratory events? Was it
Yeah.
was it like was it like, oh, okay, we on to the next one, or everyone was different?
Everyone was different, and all of the kids that were bar mitzvah were my students. So I was the one that prepared them. So I started off with the little whippersnappers when they were 12 years old and were pains in the butt. By the time people saw them on the pulpit at 13, they have now matured. And when they would get up to speak, the way we held the class was I and the bar mitzvah coach split the class in half. We had probably about 20-ish kids at a time. So I took 10, he took 10. And every week there's a different reading. So everybody had their own little thing. So they were plugged into their little cassette players and their earphones, and they studied until I got to hear them. And then the last half hour, they went up on the pulpit, all 20 of them, and two people led a service. And this way they got to hear it, they got to participate. And if they would get up and I said, you're mumbling, people don't know what you're saying. Speak slower, enunciate, project. And the morning of their bar mitzvah, if they were up on the pulpit and I was behind them on a big chair and they were speaking too fast or mumbling, I would go, and they knew that was the signal. If by the second clearing of the throat didn't work, I got up out of the chair and I tugged on the back of their suit jacket and said, slow down, enunciate. Okay. So I said, people that are coming here want to hear an A production. They do not want to hear a C production. It has to be good. And it was great. The kids that came out of there were very poised and continued on with their Jewish education. So that was a great thing. And the same thing with weddings. I would sit down and counsel with people. So I knew the people who I was marrying. And so often you will see these people that go to like a Las Vegas wedding chapel with an Elvis impersonator, and you just wonder how long the marriage is going to last after something like that. It is not a joke. And I did have several couples. One, I sat down with them and I said, you have nothing in common. You're talking about a lifetime commitment. So I said, I want you to come back next week with 3 things you have in common. And on day number 6, I get a call. Can we get an extension? We need more time. I'm going, okay, give you a few more days. They came in, they had one kind of weak thing, and they couldn't come up with anything else. I said, you have nothing holding you together. This is not going to work, and I wouldn't marry them. And about 6 weeks later, they called up and said, thank you for opening up our eyes. We have split up. So, I really wanted to make sure, and I had a very high rate of success with weddings. It was really
Awesome.
good.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now I want to go back to the airlines right quick. Now that you're retired and you're still flying around, do you critique the current airline stewardess or stuff like now? You just watch to see what they do, what they don't do.
Every single time I sit there with my mental checklist and I'll sit there and say, I wouldn't have said that. No, I wouldn't. Look at the way no, yes, I do.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
also being one that was a teacher on the plane, I was showing people the correct way of doing it. I said, when you're doing a 45-minute flight through Texas where you're going, once we called it the Texas two-step. You know, you went 1, 2, 3, 4. We would do 7, 8 flights a day as compared to the longer flights where you're doing 2 or 3 a day. So whole different technique. So yes, I was quite familiar with that. And when I sit on the plane, and I will say, I do get treated royally when I come on the plane. Most of the time at my airline, people know me, or I'll say to them, I'm a recent retiree. And they'll say, with who? I said, with us. I go, oh. And they're really very nice. On other airlines, when I come on, I normally bring them a gift. I'll bring them a box of candy or some cookies and stuff and say, I just want to tell you, I appreciate your service. And I would point to those people. The passengers, they don't quite get it. I get it. I want you to have that. And it really opens up doors.
Oh yeah, no doubt. They gonna bring you the pillow and the blanket, whatever you need. They're gonna take care of
Yes,
you.
absolutely.
So now, did you complete the book? Or are you still in the process of doing it?
The book
Hey, there we go.
is complete. And I will
Awesome.
tell you, there was a lot of pressure on me to write this book. And I said to them, okay, I'm going to do this. And one of the things that I don't like when I'm reading books like this is that they give you so much background. You're reading 10 pages of what the flowers look like and the walls look like and what mother was making. I don't want to hear that stuff. Get to the meat of the stuff. So the stories in here were stories right to the point. And what's interesting is that people that know me say that when they read the book, they could hear me speaking. And I said, well, I was trying to write it the way it happened and the way I felt. So I don't know if you would like to hear a story or two.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead. First of all, I want this hold the book up to the screen so we can get the title and everything. Okay, great.
The
Now,
Adventures of the Rabbi Who Became a Flight Attendant.
awesome,
Very catchy title.
awesome, awesome, awesome. Yeah, now tell us a story or two. It's all good. We all here for it. Trust me.
Okay. Okay, I was doing a funeral out at the county cemetery, and this was a volunteer job. The people from the county came to the Board of Rabbis and said, we would like people to come out every 3 months or so and to do funerals. So everybody took 4 steps back, and there I was up front. And I said, you know, I would be honored to do that. I think it's bad enough that you have to die penniless, but somebody needs to be there to say a kind word about you. So not all the people that were there were homeless. You know, some of them were just very, very poor. So out at the county cemetery, this is the setup. Normally, when you go to the cemetery, they have the casket over the grave on the lowering device with a mound of dirt, and sometimes it's covered with pretty astroturf. Not here. This was 20 graves dug. My job that morning was to do 8 funerals, and the other from 9 to 20 were covered with 1/4-inch plywood. So visually, they look like they're covered. If you stepped on it, you'd fall right in. So now the 2 gravediggers were prisoners from the county jail who were in their orange jumpsuits, and they were standing by. So now I'm doing funeral number 3, and I asked the funeral director if he could tell me something about the deceased. So he did, and I started speaking, and then all of a sudden 2 women came up, and they were Latina, and they didn't speak English. So I then switched from the English service to a Spanish service. I always carried one with me, and then spoke to them. And then they said, can we see our cousin Jesus? We said, sure. The funeral director now jumps into the grave. It was already lowered because there was nobody there. And he opens up the lid of the casket, and the deceased is in there stark naked. The 2 women go, ah! I said, close that up. I said, why did you do that? They said, well, they wanted to see their cousin. I said, Do you not have any common sense? Okay, the morning continues. I'm now at funeral number 8. Each one of the services were 30 minutes. I now finish the service, and then I'm walking over to the dirt pile to pick up some earth to throw into the casket, to throw over the casket. And as I do, grave number 9 has a little piece, little rabbit hole that is missing, and my right foot falls in. Then the ground gives way, my left foot falls in. I'm holding on to the wood on one side, the dirt on the other side. My feet are going like that. The 8 or 10 mourners that were there are going, the 2 grave diggers come, they pull me out, I dust myself off, they go, are you okay? Are you okay? I am mortified. I'm fine. I'm fine. So I go back to my office and I'm sitting there. And after about a half hour, I said, I am all scratched up and stuff. I'm going home. So I go home and I'm laying on the couch wearing just a pair of gym shorts because the shirt was bothering the scratches. Yeah. My wife walks in and says, why are you home in the middle of the day? I said, it was an accident. Oh, with the car? I said, no. An industrial accident. You didn't. I said, I did. Oh, wow. She called her mother, she called her sister, she called her cousins, she called everybody for them to get a good laugh. Okay, now a few weeks go by and I'm doing a funeral out at a regular cemetery. Every time I take a step, the funeral director's behind me trying to catch me. Mm-hmm. And I take another step and I go, what are you doing? He said, I want to make sure you're safe. I said, I'm safe. Oh, you heard what happened at the county? He said, oh, we all heard about it. And let me tell you, this was before cell phones, before emails and stuff. They picked up the phone and called people. And I'm going, okay.
You're lucky it happened during the times of cell phone. They'd be recording you.
Oh, absolutely. So that was probably one of the funniest experiences. Now I can laugh at it. Yeah. The other one was the Mile High Club. Everybody always asks about that. Is there such a thing? So there's not supposed to be, but there is. So this couple comes on the plane and the woman is wearing a pink leather jacket with pink fake fur around it. She looked like a bottle of Pepto-Bismol. Not pretty. The guy comes on wearing a t-shirt that says J-Date, which is a Jewish dating site. So I said, oh, J-Date. And I started talking to him and just doesn't seem to get the connection. I said, probably somebody gave him the shirt. So they're sitting down and they order a drink. And she wanted something like a pina colada. And I said, you're on an airplane. I don't have a blender here. I said, how about a vodka cranberry? I'll put a twist of lime. She said, that's fine. He wanted a beer. He said, no, I want 2 beers. I said, okay. Now, this was before credit cards were doing cash. And she's taking out money. I said, something's wrong here. A Jewish guy on a date from a dating service with a girl, and she's paying, something's not right, but hey, what do I know? I haven't been on a date in 50 years. So I go to the galley, I do the drinks, I come back, they're gone. Looking around, I don't see them. I go in the back. Said to the other 2 flight attendants, have you seen the Pepto-Bismol girl? They said, no, she was so easy to spot. No. Somebody's in the back bathroom. I said, aha. Mm-hmm. I said, okay, we know what's going on. They're knocking on the door. And the door opens up. She is sitting on the lid of the toilet. He is now zipping himself up. I said, okay, I'm not a rocket scientist, but I can figure out what's going on. I said, go back to your seats. They go back to their seats. I said, your drinks are there waiting for you. So now the other flight attendant says, make your announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome the newest members of the Mile High Club. Let's give them all a big hand. And the whole plane is just clapping. Yeah. And I do need to let you know, the plane originally started in Orlando. So a lot of these people have just come from Disney World and all the fun stuff. So, oh yeah, they're in party mood. And the other half got on in Chicago, wherever we were. It was a short flight. So now everything is fine. And we land. I said, I'd like to welcome you to Cleveland and let you know that we have a special program. And I gave him the name of the frequent flyer program. And then the guy stands up and said, and don't forget the Mile High Club. And I said, oh, yes, folks. And also the Mile High Club. And now again, they're all clapping and whistling. And it was great. Gets off the plane and he walks up to me and he slips me his business card. And his business card said something like hot studs or something or other. It turns out he was an escort that was hired by her to do the Mile High thing on an airplane. I'm going, okay. So now this is before we all carried computers with us. We all went to the hotel and quickly looked it up on the computer. Okay, this was not like the female escort services, which are very innocuous. I'll go to your meeting, I'll take care of your needs. We're in something provocative. These were naked dudes that were there. We'll do this, we'll do that. If you don't like me, we have this. I'm going, wow. I said, this is prostitution. So a week later, the FBI comes on the plane, and whenever somebody who is a law enforcement officer comes on, they have to show me their identification. So I said, okay, everything's in order. I said, I got to ask you a question. We had a guy last week who's from a service. It's online. Anybody can look at it. It's, prostitution. He's selling himself. He said, why can he do that? He said, we're really interested in people who are going to be violent and stuff. This guy wants to make a couple of bucks on the side. We're really not interested. I'm going, wow. So yeah, it was an eye opener.
Yeah, they don't care about it. But back then, no. Now, there's so much going on. It's just like they come to investigate. They're trying to remove you. They're trying to do everything now. So.
Oh yeah, whole different ball game. That is for sure.
Now, when it came down to the book, were there any challenges in writing a book or getting it published? If they were, can you tell us?
Yeah, writing the book I found required a quiet place, and so if I was home alone and not hearing a TV on or people talking, I could sit down like any other creative mode. And I'm also a piano player, and when you're doing anything in the arts, you really need to be in the proper mood. And I had a lot of downtime at that time, so I did. Now, my wife had published a book probably about 5 years before, and she used Amazon. And she said, not being a professional writer, they took care of a lot of things. So I called them up, and they have done like all the marketing and the stuff, and they would send back things, and it would go back and forth. So that was a big help, especially to somebody who's not a professional writer. And, if it weren't for them, I'm not sure what direction I would go, how to tackle this.
Right. Sounds good. Now, did you have a book signing and any type of launch event for the book?
I wish I did. Most of this stuff is done online, and I have had several speaking engagements and at the Jewish Community Center, and then there's a Jewish group that at a retirement place, Leisure World, and they had me come out, and I did some book signings there, and that was very helpful. As a matter of fact, the one at the Jewish Community Center, somebody heard it and said, oh, my friend in Leisure World would love to have you come out there. And so it has been, word of mouth doing that. But, advice that I could give to people who are trying to start a second career, if you think you're going to go from CEO to CEO, it's not going to happen. If you're going to start a new job, you have to start at the bottom and do things and, pay your dues. And once you pay your dues, then you can start moving up. But it's not going to be something that you can't do. And there are no obstacles. Life is always putting obstacles in our way. And what we have to do is look at them, see if we can jump over them. If we can't jump over them, then look at it as a detour and you go in a different direction and you find some new things that you can do. And I must say, in the careers that I had, I enjoyed working in the prisons. Not that I enjoyed being with killers and stuff, but I felt I could make a difference. And then going from that violent environment back to a suburban Jewish congregation in Phoenix, totally different ball game, and it was kind of a nice, refreshing thing. Same thing with working at the Arizona State Hospital. My background in teaching was in foreign language and special ed. So I was able to work with people who were psych patients and enjoyed the time. It was 4 hours once a week, and it was a very rewarding experience. And then I would go back to my regular job, and it was a nice change of pace. So you have to be flexible, look
Yeah.
at all things as being a challenge and an exciting thing to do. And it'll bring you a lot of fulfillment and a lot of happiness. And one of the things that people don't do in retirement, they sit on the couch and watch TV all day. As you said earlier, you got to get out and go to the gym and take those long walks and do things to stimulate your brain. Read books. You know, if you're going to watch TV, watch a documentary that might teach you something to
Right.
keep the juices going.
Right. No doubt about that. When I feel when it comes down to obstacles, they could be annoying, but they're there to really prompt you to get better. Depending on your mindset, if you have a growth mindset, you see the opportunity or opportunities in the obstacle, and then you that'll push you forward. It could be a blessing. There's a learning lesson in that obstacle. So, you know, yeah, you might it may upset you at first, but you'd be like, okay, let me see, what can I learn here? What can I create? What can I produce? It's here to teach me something. So when you look at it like that, very optimistic about obstacles, it can really help propel you to the next level.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't believe that God makes mistakes. I really think that what happens happens for a reason. And you may look at it that it's not your direction, but it was put there for a purpose. And if you realize that and embrace it rather than rejecting it, and I will say, a lot of the things that I'm doing now had to do with the Vietnam War. I was drafted. This was the only lottery I ever won. I was number 18. So my chances of going over to Vietnam and fight were pretty great. My first career goal was to be an interpreter at the UN. I was a New Yorker working the United Nations as an interpreter with all of these people there. That would be very exciting, but I would have gotten drafted. And then being a teacher, I did not get drafted. If I was a college professor, I would have, but a high school teacher, not. And then finally, they started doing that. And the next thing down on my list was to become a rabbi. And it was always one of the things I wanted to do. It was never number one, it was further down on the list. But it was a great life. I'm looking back now, I'm 75 years old, and I wouldn't have wanted to have it any other way. It really all happened the way it needed to happen.
Now, being 75 years old, looking back, if you can go back, what advice would you give your younger self?
Look at what your personal inclinations are. If you're a person that likes people, then doing something like being a rabbi or a flight attendant is good. If you're one that doesn't like people but are much more interested in sitting in a cubicle working with a computer and just handing out reports and numbers and stuff, then you need to go in that direction and not try to do the other. And I have found some of my colleagues on the plane who will say things like, well, that woman in row 5 wanted 5 drinks. I said, okay, we're here to serve drinks. This is not a big deal. I said, but the woman in row 2 didn't order any drinks. So let's average it out. That's really only 2.5 drinks now. So really, it's not. But you obviously don't like people. And on a plane, if you can give somebody an extra Coke, they think that, or you give them the whole can, oh, they think that they've won the lottery. And, you just have to know how to do with people. So You need to look at who you are as a person. Don't be afraid of things. Like I know this goes back to my early career at age 11 when I delivered flowers to a funeral home in Harlem. So Jews never took little kids to funerals because they thought it was always unpleasant and they shouldn't see that. So now I'm going from Brooklyn on the subway up to Harlem and I deliver flowers. And I go in there and here is a funeral home. I go walking in, and there are all these chairs and this beautiful mahogany piano in the middle. And I walk over to look at the piano, and it is not. It's a casket with a dead man laying in it. And he's
Oh
sitting there
wow.
like this. I dropped the flowers. I signed the paper myself, and I went home and was was just scared to death.
Yeah.
And, it was a good experience because later in my life, becoming a rabbi, part of my duties were to prepare the dead. So this was an exposure I needed in early life. Was I afraid? Absolutely. Looking at somebody who was dead, go, oh, whereas now I say, I'm helping this person make their transition to the next level. So all the things that happen, even though you think they're mistakes, they're not mistakes. They were all meant to happen the way they did.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. I got a couple more questions. What are some of the biggest lessons life has taught you?
Nothing is impossible other than baseball. I have no eye-hand coordination. I was talking to my optometrist at the age of 42, who also did developmental tests with kids. And he said, I could teach you the eye hand coordination and you could be a lot of work, but you could do it. I said, if you would have gotten me at age 12, I would have taken you up on this. At 42, I'm not that concerned. But other than that, and it can be remedied, I just chose not to. But no, there really is nothing that you can't do if you put your mind to it and have faith. And I truly believe having faith in God and having faith in yourself, as you had said earlier, you have to take care of yourself, and think about what's going to make you strong. And it's eating right and not abusing things. And nobody said that you shouldn't have a drink, but not to the point that you're intoxicated and stuff. Look at your life, look at who you are inside, and look at what the gifts you are that you can share with other people.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. I think it was back 2001 when I stayed up in Rochester, New York. My background is hospitality management and culinary arts. And a former boss of mine, she introduced me to a independent Jewish community. It's called the Summit of Brighton. It's a lot of high end individuals there, and I was the only African American chef there. And
Mhm.
a rabbi came in and he said, "Okay, I'm gonna show you how to make our traditional cuisines." And I made Lockies, and I had to get them Lockies just right.
Oh,
And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
just right, and Zimis. I never. I've cooked a lot of foods, but I had to make the Zimis, the brisket, uh, and a lot of. I said I didn't understand the ingredients at one point, and then when I started getting so familiar with the recipes and talking with the rabbi there, learning how to do kosher and the parv and the neutral and all that stuff like that, it was
Right.
such a rewarding feeling for me because I'm a young man. I'm in my mid 20s, right? So
Right.
I didn't know about the Jewish culture and the cuisines and how to prepare certain foods, being unorthodox, orthodox. And I made cow tongue,
Hmm.
and I was like, oh my god, I can't do it. But it was pretty tasty. It was really everything
It's
was
one of my favorites.
everything was really good. And I remember some of the residents there, they was like, oh, we got to send the chef out. I walked out. Here I am, young African American guy walks out in front of this all these Jewish individuals, and oh, they got the big diamond necklaces on and the big rings on the diamonds. They got the gowns on, and this is every day when they come down for supper. They're looking glamorous, and I walk and they got the chandeliers hanging from the wall. And I said, "This is a lot of money up in here," you
Oh
know.
yeah.
And they was like, "Come on over here," and I was so intimidated at one point because I didn't know what to expect. And there was like the rabbi came out. The rabbi said, "Oh yeah, this is Terrence. This is And they said, "Young man, you do an amazing job cooking these meals every day." And the rabbi has, it made him look super, super famous because he was able to teach me how to make uh, the potato pancakes. The number one thing that and the zimmes, I can get anything else wrong. Long as if I don't get the pancakes and the zimmes wrong,
Hmm.
I'm great. And I wanted to share that story. That was like 2000, 2002, to 2001 to 2003. I was there. Um, I feel like every culture has something to share to the world. You know, uniqueness, whether it's cuisines, it's religion, it's beliefs, whatever it is, right? And
Right.
it's a beautiful thing. And I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, and it wasn't that I was closed off. It's like, okay, you're African American, you're black, you stay over here, everybody else is over there.
Right.
And then by the time I reconnected with my father, I was 18 and I moved upstate Rochester, New York. New York opened my whole world up to different cultures and backgrounds and religion. And I never knew. And I think that's one of the best experiences that I ever had in my life, meeting people from everywhere. So now living here in Atlanta at 57, it's like I get along with everybody, and I love hearing stories. I love meeting new people. I love your stories. Just you almost falling into the grave is. Oh man,
Oh
that
yeah.
imagine if they had cell phones back then, Rabbi.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
would have been on TikTok.
Oh, oh yes.
You
Yes.
would have been everywhere. They'd be like, somebody come look at this. It would have been crazy, man. So we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for blessing us with your stories, with your presence. And we know the book is going to do phenomenal things. We wish you much continued success, even at in your retirement, all those good things like that. We wish you health, vitality, blessings to you and your family, and everything. We really appreciate you. Any final words you want to share with people? Words of
All I
encouragement?
Yes, never give up. Follow the new path and just keep going and have confidence in yourself. This is something that you can do. And if you have faith in yourself, faith in a higher power, it'll work. You know, you are part of this universe and you have your little piece to put in it, your piece of the puzzle. And yeah, never give up.
Never
Never.
give. Now tell everybody how can they follow you and where can they purchase the book as well?
The book is on Amazon, The Adventures of the Rabbi Who Became a Flight Attendant. And we do have a website of which I want to say it's David and Ann Pinkwasser. Is that the name?
It could be. I was thinking about that this
Yeah,
morning.
I'm not sure of the website. Obviously, there's not a lot of activity on that
Because
website. But yeah, there is. If they just look up my name, they should be able to find it.
Get the book. I know it sounds like the book you got like a million stories in there. You know, I mean, Let me one more. I got some more questions. So, what was the emotional connection when you're writing a book? When you're telling the story, did you have to slow down because you're laughing hard and you just find it hilarious? They're like, oh, they're gonna get a kick out of it. What was the emotional connection?
Oh yeah, yeah, and especially the one. It was a chapter was called "Don't Shoot." I was at a prison that was probably about a 3.5 hour drive from Phoenix, and before I left there, I went into the restroom. So it was a one seater. I locked the door. And this prison was the only prison that required us to carry a body alarm. So it looked like a receiver to a telephone. And I had it in my back pocket. And of course, when I went to the bathroom and dropped my pants, it hit the floor and it set it off. It was a
Oh,
silent alarm. And now the whole prison is in lockdown because they think I'm being taken captive.
right.
Okay, well, I have no idea this is happening. So I finish up. I now open up the door. There are people standing there with guns pointed at me. I'm going, don't shoot, don't shoot. I flushed. I washed my hands.
Yeah.
And I just started laughing
Yeah.
because the whole thing was so ridiculous. They said, well, we thought you were taken captive. Your body alarm went off that you were in distress. I said, no. So he said, the warden wants to speak to you.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, yeah. He said, if this happens again, you are out. No, 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 no. I will be a good boy.
Yeah.
Never happened again. But yeah, I sat there laughing. And some of those stories, were really funny. And were it not for the book, I probably wouldn't have dug some of these up in my memory. But I'm glad I did. It was
Yeah.
a good
Yeah.
experience.
Most definitely. I'm some amazing. Even the stories you just shared in my mind. I'm picturing you. Everything that you shared is hilarious. It's funny. It's funny, and I'm glad that you're able to put it in a book form where people can read and laugh and have fun. Your stories.
I think they will. I really do.
Ladies and gentlemen, Rabbi David Pinkwasser. Remember, he has over 50 years of working experience. He's went from a rabbi, airline employee, school teacher in the school system, as well as working as a chaplain in the prison. And he's this, listen, you can always start over, transform into a new position. I know I did. I went from corporate America just to being an independent entrepreneur myself for 8 years now. So even right now, if you're starting to feel burnout, like I know a lot of people, you're working on your jobs, you're having uncertainty right now about where you're going to be in your career because of a lot of changes that's going on, especially if you're working for the federal government. Okay, I have a family member who works in HR in the federal government. 2 Fridays ago, she had to terminate 2,000 people right on the spot. It's crazy. So, but don't be afraid to make the shift in your career. Find something else to do. Understand if you got some new skills, you got some stories. There's so many different ways that you can pretty much make a good income right now without being tied to a desk, without being tied to a career that does not value you or don't care about you and that's stressing you out. I remember when COVID happened, I was working with clients who was suffering from hypertension, diabetes, they were overweight, heart disease, and all that. They got terminated from their corporate job. Come to find out, I think it was like 8 weeks later after being terminated, guess what? They lost the weight, their blood pressure normalized, there was not only any more diabetes. So a lot of times it can be your job that's making you ill. So you have to look at that and say, okay, if I'm laid off now, what's next? But look at the bigger picture. How am I feeling right now? Am I feeling uh more energized? I'm feeling less stressed now. Oh, maybe I can write this book now. Maybe I can travel more. Whatever you need to do, it could be a blessing in disguise. So we want to make sure that you pay attention to everything that's going on in your life. A lot of things are not coming to hurt you, they're coming to help you. If you look at it that way, right? See what the blessings is, see what the opportunity is. And like you mentioned earlier, sometimes the detours can get you to your destination faster. So God always had a plan, and you want to make sure that you tap in with Him, tap in with your faith, increase your spiritual fitness, get stronger, read the Word, tap in with individuals like Rabbi David. Wherever you at, whatever culture you're in, whatever faith belief that you're dealing on a regular basis, Tap in with that because spiritually, you're going to find yourself more at peace. You're going to have a calmness over you. And now you're not overly stressed out all the time because you know that the higher power that you're tapping into has something for you. And you start to feel the presence when you have the overall peace of knowing that you're being taken care of. So that's all I want to say about that. Rabbi David Pinkwasser. Remember, over 25 years, over 50 years of experience working in so many different backgrounds, so many different elements. He's done so many things, and I really appreciate you. And he's still going. Make sure y'all go get the book too, especially on Amazon. Purchase the book. The description is and everything, the link and everything is going to be on the show. So you make sure you be like, where can I get it? You just hit the link and then you go ahead and purchase it. So we appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for subscribing to the channel, listening, downloading, uh, 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 really sharing the program out as well. And this one should be no different. We really appreciate you guys. And we only bring you some incredible individuals from all over the world. We love highlighting people, meeting new people, and sharing their stories on the platform. So we really appreciate the opportunity, Rabbi. Thank you so much. Must continue blessings. Just hold the line for us. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great day. Be safe out there. Take care of yourself. Remember this, self care is not selfish. Put yourself first, okay? Believe me, you may feel like, oh, I got to take care of everybody else, but no, you have to take care of you because now you have to maintain yourself of being an asset and not a liability. God forbid you're so stressed now you caught a stroke. Now your world is just going through it right now. So now it messes other people up because they got to take care of you. Okay, so make sure you take care of yourself. We really appreciate you guys, and we see you guys soon.